Please, don't let them find me. The small voice cut through the heavy rain like a desperate cry for help. Sarah looked up from wiping down the diner's front window and saw a little black girl, no more than 12, pressed against the glass door. Her school uniform was soaked, her braids dripping water, and her dark eyes filled with pure terror. Honey, what's wrong? Sarah quickly opened the door, pulling the shivering child inside. The girl collapsed into her arms, trembling not just from the cold, but from something much deeper. They took me, the girl whispered, her voice barely audible above the storm outside. But I got away. I heard them talking about my daddy's money. They said someone in my family paid them to. Her words trailed off as she looked around nervously. Sarah's heart pounded. This wasn't just any lost child. The expensive uniform, the mention of money, the raw fear in her eyes. This was something much bigger and more dangerous than she could have imagined. Outside, car headlights swept across the empty street, and the girl grabbed Sarah's arm with surprising strength. They're looking for me. If you're someone who appreciates emotional stories, we'd love for you to like and subscribe. There's more to come that might move you too. The rain hammered against the windows of Murphy's diner like bullets, each drop echoing the chaos that was about to unfold inside. Sarah Martinez had been working the late shift for 8 years, serving coffee to truckers and insomniacs who wandered in from the lonely streets of downtown Chicago. She'd seen it all: drunks, runaways, broken hearts, and lost souls. But nothing had prepared her for what was about to walk through her door. Sarah wrapped the small girl in a warm towel, her motherly instincts kicking in despite the alarm bells ringing in her head. The child's expensive uniform was from Westfield Academy, a private school she'd only heard about in passing. Kids from families with serious money attended there, the kind of money that could buy silence, influence, and sometimes terrible secrets. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Sarah asked gently, leading her to a corner booth away from the windows. Her trained eye noticed everything: the girl's expensive shoes, the small diamond earrings, the way she carried herself despite her obvious terror. "Emma," the girl whispered, glancing nervously at the door. "Emma Harrison." The name hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. Harrison, as in Harrison Industries, the tech empire that dominated half the city's skyline with its gleaming towers. She'd seen Mr. James Harrison on the news countless times, always in expensive suits, always talking about billion-dollar deals and charitable donations. He was Chicago's golden boy, the self-made billionaire who'd built an empire from nothing. "Emma, honey, are you James Harrison's daughter?" Sarah's voice was barely steady as she processed the magnitude of what was happening. Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face, leaving clean tracks through the dirt and fear. "They took me from school. 3 men in a black van. But when they stopped for gas, I ran." Her small hands shook as she continued, the words tumbling out like a dam had burst. "I heard them on the phone. They said someone close to Daddy paid them to take me, someone who wanted me gone forever." The words sent chills down Sarah's spine. This wasn't just a kidnapping. It was family betrayal at the highest level. Sarah's mind raced as she studied the child before her. At 32, she'd worked at Murphy's Diner for 8 years, serving coffee to truck drivers and late-night workers, living paycheck to paycheck in her small apartment with her ailing mother. Nothing in her simple, predictable life had prepared her for this moment. But looking at Emma's terrified face, seeing the way the girl's small body trembled with exhaustion and fear, she knew one thing for certain: she couldn't let anything happen to this child. The diner felt different now, no longer the safe haven it had always been. Every shadow seemed threatening. Every sound from the storm outside made them both jump. Sarah glanced at the clock. 11:47 p.m. Her manager, Bobby, had left an hour ago, trusting her to close up alone like she'd done hundreds of times before. "We need to call your father," Sarah said, reaching for her phone with hands that weren't quite steady. "No." Emma grabbed her wrist with surprising strength for such a small girl. "They said Daddy can't be trusted either. They said the person who hired them knows everything about our family. They'll know if we call him." Sarah felt her world spinning out of control. If they couldn't trust the girl's father, and the kidnappers had inside information, who could they turn to? The police seemed like the obvious choice, but something in Emma's expression warned her that even that might not be safe. "The man who gave them money." Emma's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "I heard his voice before. He comes to our house sometimes for dinner. He calls Daddy brother." Sarah's blood ran cold. Emma was saying her own uncle might have orchestrated her kidnapping. The rain pounded harder against the diner's windows, creating an almost hypnotic rhythm that did nothing to calm Sarah's racing heart. Emma jumped at every sound. The creak of the old building settling, the whistle of wind through the doorframe, the distant rumble of thunder that seemed to mirror the storm of emotions raging inside both of them. "Emma, I need you to tell me everything you remember," Sarah said, moving to lock the front door with hands that trembled slightly. Every detail could be important. Emma took a shaky breath, her young face looking far older than her 12 years. "Uncle Robert was at our house last week. He was angry with Daddy about something called the will. I was supposed to be asleep, but I heard them fighting downstairs. Uncle Robert's voice was so loud, so angry. He said Daddy was selfish, that the money should go to someone who deserved it." Sarah felt pieces of a dangerous puzzle starting to form in her mind. A wealthy man's brother, angry about inheritance, and now a missing child. The implications were terrifying, but Emma continued, and her next words made Sarah's hands go cold. "After their fight, when Uncle Robert thought Daddy had gone to bed, I heard him on the phone in Daddy's study. He said, 'The girl won't be a problem much longer.' I thought he meant my cousin Lisa. She's always causing trouble at family dinners. But now..." Emma's voice broke, the reality of her situation hitting her again. "Now I think he meant me." The realization hit both of them at the same time. Emma had witnessed her uncle planning her own disappearance. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from Bobby, her manager. "Storm's getting worse out there. Stay safe and close early if you need to." But closing early meant going outside, meant leaving the relative safety of the diner, and Sarah had a terrible feeling they were being watched. She moved carefully to the window and peered through the rain-streaked glass. The street outside was mostly empty, illuminated only by the occasional streetlight and the neon glow of the 24-hour laundromat across the way. But there, barely visible through the storm, sat a black sedan with its lights off, parked in a spot that gave whoever was inside a perfect view of the diner's entrance. Her heart stopped. The same type of car Emma had described. "Emma," Sarah whispered, trying to keep her voice calm despite the fear that was threatening to overwhelm her. "Don't look toward the window, but I think they found us." Emma's face went white as paper. "The black car? You can see it too?" "That's the same one from school, the one they put me in." Emma's voice was barely audible, and Sarah could see the girl's hands starting to shake again. "They're going to take me again, aren't they?" Sarah's mind raced through their limited options. The back exit led to an alley, but that could easily be a trap. Her old Honda was parked right in front of the diner, impossible to reach without being seen, and calling the police might alert whoever was helping the kidnappers from inside Emma's own family. The minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness. Then, suddenly, the black sedan's doors opened. Through the rain and darkness, Sarah could make out two figures getting out, large, imposing shapes that moved with purpose through the storm. "They're coming," Sarah whispered, and in that moment, she realized she was the only thing standing between Emma and whatever dark plan was unfolding around the Harrison family fortune. Sarah grabbed Emma's hand and pulled her toward the kitchen, her mind working frantically to find a solution. "There's a storage room in the back with a heavy lock. You hide there while I figure out what to do." "Don't leave me," Emma pleaded, her small fingers gripping Sarah's uniform with desperate strength. "Please don't leave me alone." "I won't. I promise you that." Sarah knelt down to look Emma in the eyes, seeing her own fear reflected in the child's dark gaze. "But I need you to be brave for just a few minutes, okay? Can you do that for me?" Emma nodded, though her chin trembled with the effort of holding back tears. As they moved through the kitchen, past the industrial stoves and prep tables that had been Sarah's world for so many years, her phone rang. The sound cut through the silence like a knife. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize, just a string of digits that somehow felt threatening. Against her better judgment, against every instinct screaming at her to ignore it, she answered. "Sarah Martinez?" The voice was smooth and professional, but there was something cold and threatening underneath the polite tone. "Who is this?" Sarah's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Someone who knows you have something that belongs to us. Look, Miss Martinez, you seem like a nice woman. You work hard, you pay your bills on time, you take care of your sick mother in that little apartment on Oak Street. Apartment 4B, isn't it?" Sarah's blood turned to ice. They knew where she lived. They knew about her mother's condition, about the medical bills that kept her working double shifts, about the small details of her quiet, private life. "You have 30 seconds to bring the girl outside, or your life as you know it will end tonight." Sarah hung up, her hands shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. Emma had heard enough of the conversation to understand the threat, and the fear in her young eyes nearly broke Sarah's heart. "They know about your family too," Emma whispered, her voice filled with a wisdom no 12-year-old should possess. "That's what they do. Uncle Robert told me once that powerful people always find out everything about everyone around them. They use it to control people, to make them do things they don't want to do." Sarah looked at this brave little girl who had already been through so much, and something fierce awakened inside her chest. She'd spent her whole life playing it safe, keeping her head down, working hard and avoiding trouble. But some things were worth fighting for, and Emma Harrison was definitely one. "Emma, I need to know, besides what you overheard about your uncle, is there anything else? Any other clues about who might be involved in this?" Emma thought for a moment, her young face scrunched in concentration. Then her eyes widened with realization. "The day before they took me, Uncle Robert brought someone to the house, a woman with bright red hair and expensive clothes. She had a briefcase and was asking Daddy lots of questions about his business. But when I walked into the room, they stopped talking real fast, like they were discussing secrets." "What kind of questions was she asking?" "About Daddy's will, about what would happen to the company if something happened to him, about who would inherit everything, and—" Emma paused, the memory clearly troubling her. "About me. She asked if Daddy had made me his heir, if I was legally entitled to everything when I turn 18. Sarah realized they weren't just dealing with a kidnapping. They were witnessing the systematic destruction of a family, orchestrated by people who stood to gain everything if Emma disappeared forever. The sound of the diner's front door handle being tested echoed through the empty restaurant. Sarah realized their time was up. The men outside weren't going to wait any longer. "Emma, listen to me very carefully," Sarah whispered urgently. "I'm going to create a distraction. When I do, you run out the back door and keep running until you find help. Don't trust anyone who knows your name or your family." "What about you?" Sarah smiled sadly. "I'll be right behind you." But as she moved toward the front of the diner, ready to face whatever was coming, Emma's next words stopped her in her tracks. "Sarah, there's something else I didn't tell you. Something I saw in Uncle Robert's briefcase when he thought I wasn't looking." "What was it, Emma?" "Pictures of you, and a file with your name on it. They've been watching you for weeks." The sound of the diner's front door handle being tested echoed through the empty restaurant like a death knell. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs as she realized their time was up. The men outside weren't going to wait any longer, and whatever patience they'd shown was rapidly running out. "Emma, listen to me very carefully," Sarah whispered urgently, pulling the girl deeper into the kitchen's shadows. "I'm going to create a distraction. When I do, you run out the back door and keep running until you find help. Don't trust anyone who knows your name or your family." "What about you?" Emma's voice was small and frightened, but there was something else there too. A determination that reminded Sarah that this girl came from strong stock. Sarah forced a smile she didn't feel. "I'll be right behind you, I promise." But as she moved toward the front of the diner, ready to face whatever was coming through that door, Emma's next words stopped her dead in her tracks. "Sarah, there's something else I didn't tell you. Something I saw in Uncle Robert's briefcase when he thought I wasn't looking." Sarah turned back, her blood running cold at the expression on Emma's face. "What was it, Emma?" "Pictures of you, and a file with your name on it. They've been watching you for weeks." The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. This wasn't random. They hadn't just stumbled into this diner by chance during the storm. Somehow, impossibly, she'd been part of their plan all along. "That's impossible," Sarah whispered. But even as she said it, pieces began falling into place. The strange feeling she'd had lately of being watched. The customer last week who'd asked too many personal questions. The man who'd accidentally bumped into her outside her apartment building, apologizing profusely while his eyes memorized her face. Emma nodded grimly. "There were photos of you leaving work, photos of you at the grocery store, even photos of you visiting your mother at the hospital. And there was a paper that said you were compassionate and predictable, whatever that means." Sarah's mind reeled. They'd studied her, learned her routines, identified her weaknesses. But why? What could a struggling waitress possibly have to do with a billionaire's family drama? The front door rattled again, more insistently this time. Through the glass, Sarah could see the shadows of at least two men. One was speaking into a phone, his voice a low rumble she couldn't make out over the storm. "They're getting impatient," Emma whispered, pressing closer to Sarah. "Think, Emma. Think hard. Was there anything else in that briefcase? Anything that might tell us why they targeted me specifically?" Emma closed her eyes, concentrating. There was something about your mother's medical records. And something about a debt. A big debt that your family owes to someone. Sarah's world tilted. The medical debt. Her mother's cancer treatment that insurance wouldn't fully cover. She'd been so careful to keep those problems private. So how could they possibly know? My mother's treatment costs over $200,000, Sarah whispered, the pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. We've been making payments, but we're still behind. Way behind. That's it, Emma said, her young mind putting together what the adults had planned. They knew you'd do anything to protect your mother. They picked you because they knew you were vulnerable. A new sound cut through the storm, the sharp crack of breaking glass. One of the men had smashed the small window next to the front door and was reaching through to unlock it from the inside. Sarah grabbed Emma's hand and pulled her toward the back exit, but as they reached the kitchen's rear door, she heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps in the alley behind the building. They were surrounded. The storage room, Sarah whispered, leading Emma to a heavy metal door marked "Employees Only." Inside was barely large enough for both of them, filled with boxes of supplies and cleaning equipment. Sarah locked the door behind them and pulled out her phone. "Who are you calling?" Emma asked. "The only person I can think of who might be able to help us." Sarah dialed a number she hadn't called in over 2 years. "My ex-boyfriend Marcus. He's a detective with Chicago PD." The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Finally, a groggy voice answered. "Sarah, do you know what time it is?" "Marcus, I need your help. I'm in serious trouble." There was a pause, and when Marcus spoke again, his voice was alert and professional. "What kind of trouble?" "I have a kidnapped child with me. The men who took her found us, and I think we're about to—" The line went dead. Sarah stared at her phone in disbelief. The call had been cut off, but not by Marcus. Someone had killed the signal. "They're jamming our communications," she whispered to Emma. "We're completely cut off." Emma's face went pale in the dim light filtering through the storage room's single small window. "They did the same thing when they took me from school. They had some kind of device that blocked all the phones in the area." The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the diner's main dining area. Sarah could hear chairs being moved, tables pushed aside. They were searching methodically, and it was only a matter of time before they found the storage room. "There has to be another way out," Sarah whispered, looking around desperately. The storage room was essentially a concrete box with one door and one tiny window too small for even Emma to fit through. "Wait," Emma whispered, pointing to a ventilation grate near the ceiling. "I'm small enough to fit through there. I could crawl through the vents and get help." "Absolutely not. I'm not sending you into those vents alone." "Sarah, listen to me." Emma's voice carried a maturity that broke Sarah's heart. "If they catch both of us, we're both dead. But if I can get away, I can tell people what really happened. I can expose Uncle Robert and whoever else is involved." The footsteps were getting closer. Sarah could hear voices now, low and urgent. One man was giving orders to the others, coordinating their search. "There's something else you need to know," Emma whispered urgently. "Something I remembered while we were hiding. The woman with red hair who came to our house. I heard Uncle Robert call her by name." "What was it?" "Victoria Martinez." Sarah's blood turned to ice. "Martinez is my last name." Emma nodded grimly. "She's your sister, isn't she? The sister you told me about. The one who works for a big law firm and never calls anymore." The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. Victoria, her older sister who'd always been jealous of their parents' attention, who'd left home at 18 and barely stayed in touch. Victoria, who'd become a successful corporate lawyer and looked down on Sarah's simple life. Victoria, who would know everything about their family's financial struggles and emotional weak points. "My own sister," Sarah whispered, the betrayal cutting deeper than any physical wound. "She's been working with them. She gave them my information, told them how to manipulate me." "That's why they knew so much about you," Emma said. "She told them everything. Your schedule, your mother's condition, your debts. She made you the perfect target." The storage room door handle rattled. Someone was testing it, checking if it was locked. Sarah and Emma froze, barely daring to breathe. "Check every room," a deep voice commanded from just outside their hiding place. They can't have gone far in this storm. Sarah made a decision that went against every protective instinct she had. "Emma, you're right. You have to go through that vent. But listen to me carefully. Don't trust the police. If my sister is involved, She might have contacts there too. Find a way to contact your father directly, but do it safely. Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face. What about you? I'm going to buy you time, and when this is over, I'm going to make sure your Uncle Robert and my sister pay for what they've done. As Emma climbed toward the ventilation grate, Sarah heard the storage room door begin to splinter under the force of someone trying to break it down. The storage room door exploded inward with a thunderous crash, sending splinters of wood flying across the small space. Sarah had just enough time to see Emma's small feet disappear into the ventilation shaft before two large men in dark clothing burst through the doorway, their faces hidden behind black masks. Where is she? The larger of the two men grabbed Sarah by the shoulders, his grip bruising even through her thick uniform. His voice was rough, like sandpaper against stone. Where's who? Sarah tried to keep her voice steady, buying Emma precious seconds to get further into the vents. The man's grip tightened. Don't play games with us, lady. We know the Harrison girl was here. The thermal scanner shows 2 heat signatures entered this room. Sarah's heart sank. They had equipment she hadn't counted on, technology that made their hiding place useless. But she could still protect Emma, could still give her time to escape. She ran out the back when she heard you breaking in, Sarah lied, meeting the man's cold stare without flinching. Check the alley if you don't believe me. The second man, shorter but somehow more menacing, stepped closer. Tony, look at this. He was holding a small device that beeped softly. The thermal trail leads up to that vent. The kid's in the ventilation system. Tony's face darkened behind his mask. Get on the radio. Tell the team to cover all the external vents. That little girl isn't getting out of this building alive. Sarah realized with horror that Emma had crawled right into a trap. They'd anticipated this escape route and were already moving to cut her off. You don't understand, Sarah said desperately, trying to create some kind of distraction. That child has done nothing wrong. She's just 12 years old. Whatever money you're being paid, it can't be worth murdering an innocent kid. Tony laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Innocent? Lady, that innocent kid is worth about $3 billion to the right people. And unfortunately for her, she's worth even more dead than alive. The shorter man was speaking rapidly into a radio. Unit 3, cover the north side vents. Unit 4, south side. She's small, but she can't have gotten far. And remember, no witnesses. Sarah's blood turned to ice at those last 2 words. They weren't planning to let either of them walk away from this. My sister Victoria hired you, didn't she? Sarah asked, hoping to keep them talking while Emma made her escape. She set this whole thing up. Tony's eyes narrowed behind his mask. Your sister's a smart woman. She understands that sometimes family loyalty has to take a back seat to financial necessity. Your mother's medical bills are going to bankrupt you anyway. At least this way, Victoria gets to inherit the family debt-free. And what do you get out of it? Robert Harrison is paying us very well to make sure his niece disappears permanently, and your sister is paying us extra to make sure the witness who helped her also disappears. Clean and simple. Sarah realized she'd been betrayed not just by her sister, but set up as a disposable pawn in a game where everyone close to her stood to benefit from her death. Above them, in the ventilation system, Sarah could hear the faint sound of Emma crawling through the metal ducts. The sound was getting fainter, which meant she was moving away from them, but Sarah knew it was only a matter of time before the men outside spotted her. There's one thing I don't understand, Sarah said, still trying to buy time. Why go through all this elaborate planning? Why not just pay off some random criminal to kidnap Emma? The shorter man looked up from his radio. Because Robert Harrison needed it to look like a real kidnapping gone wrong. If it looked too professional, too clean, people would start asking questions about who had the resources to pull it off. But a desperate waitress who gets in over her head trying to help a lost child? That's believable. That's a story people will accept. And when they find our bodies? They'll find evidence that you tried to ransom the girl back to her family, Tony explained with chilling matter-of-factness. They'll find the threatening phone calls you supposedly made, the demands for money. You'll look like a kidnapper who got greedy and paid the price. Case closed. Sarah felt sick. They'd thought of everything, planned every detail. Even her attempt to help Emma would be twisted into something ugly and criminal. A new voice crackled over the radio. We've got movement in the east side ventilation outlet. Small figure, definitely the target. Emma was about to crawl right into their hands, and there was nothing Sarah could do to warn her. Tony smiled coldly. Looks like playtime is over. He spoke into his radio. Take her alive if possible, but don't take any unnecessary risks. We can make it work either way. Desperation gave Sarah strength she didn't know she possessed. She lunged forward, grabbing Tony's radio and smashing it against the concrete wall before he could react. The device shattered into pieces, cutting off his communication with the team outside. "You stupid!" Tony's hand swung toward her, but Sarah ducked and ran for the broken storage room door. "Emma! They're waiting for you outside!" she screamed at the top of her lungs, hoping her voice would carry through the ventilation system. "Don't come out! Find another way!" The shorter man tackled her from behind, sending them both crashing into the kitchen's prep table. Pots and pans clattered to the floor around them, the noise echoing through the empty diner like thunder. "Shut her up," Tony snarled, pulling out a gun from inside his jacket. "We can't afford to let her warn the kid." But Sarah kept screaming, kept fighting, even as the shorter man tried to cover her mouth. "Emma, stay hidden! Don't trust anyone! Call your father directly!" A new sound cut through the chaos, the distant wail of sirens approaching through the storm. Tony and his partner froze, looking at each other in alarm. "That's impossible," the shorter man said. "We jammed all communications in this area." Tony grabbed his backup radio. "All units report. Why are there police sirens heading our way?" Static answered him for several long seconds. Then a familiar voice came through the radio. "Marcus, Sarah's ex-boyfriend. This is Detective Marcus Chen, Chicago PD. We have the building surrounded. Release the hostages and come out with your hands visible." Sarah's heart leaped with hope, but Tony's expression darkened with rage. "Your boyfriend's about to get both of you killed," he snarled, pressing the gun against Sarah's temple. "Because we're not going to prison for this, and we're sure as hell not leaving any witnesses behind." Through the kitchen window, Sarah could see the red and blue lights of multiple police cars reflecting off the rain-soaked street. But she also noticed something that made her blood run cold. Several of the cars were positioned in ways that would prevent anyone from escaping, including Emma, if she managed to get out of the building. "How did they know to come here?" the shorter man demanded. Tony was studying the police positions through the window, and his face showed growing suspicion. "Unless..." He turned to stare at Sarah with new understanding. "Your sister didn't just hire us to kill you. She hired the cops to clean up any loose ends too." "What do you mean?" "Think about it. Your detective boyfriend shows up at the perfect time with just enough backup to contain the situation, but not enough to storm the building and risk Emma getting hurt. He's here to make sure we finish the job. Then he'll take us down as the heroes who tried to save you." Sarah realized with growing horror that even the police rescue might be part of the conspiracy, and Marcus, the man she'd trusted to save them, could be working for the same people who wanted her and Emma dead. Above them, the ventilation system had gone ominously quiet. Emma had either found another hiding place, or she'd already been captured. And now, with the police surrounding the building, Sarah began to understand the true scope of the trap that had been set for both of them. The game was far from over, and the people she'd trusted most in the world were the very ones orchestrating their destruction. The standoff stretched on for what felt like hours, but Sarah's watch showed only 20 minutes had passed since the police arrived. Tony kept the gun pressed against her temple while his partner monitored the radio chatter, their faces growing more tense with each passing minute. "Something's not right," the shorter man muttered, adjusting his earpiece. "The cops aren't moving in. They're just... waiting." Sarah's mind raced. If Marcus was really trying to save them, he would have attempted contact by now. He would have tried to negotiate, to establish communication. But the police cars just sat there in the rain, their lights flashing silently like some kind of deadly Christmas display. "Maybe they're waiting for a SWAT team," Sarah suggested, though her voice lacked conviction. Tony laughed bitterly. "Or maybe they're waiting for us to do their dirty work for them." He spoke into his backup radio. "Control, this is Tony. What's the real situation out there?" A crisp female voice answered, one that made Sarah's blood run cold with recognition. "Tony, this is Victoria Martinez, legal counsel for this operation. The police presence is... expected. Detective Chen is cooperating with our timeline. You have 15 minutes to complete your primary objectives before the rescue attempt begins." Sarah's sister. Her own flesh and blood, coordinating her murder with the same professional tone she probably used to discuss corporate mergers. "Victoria!" Sarah called out, knowing her sister could hear her through Tony's radio. "How could you do this to your own family?" There was a pause before Victoria's voice came back, colder than the storm outside. "Sarah, you always were too sentimental. This isn't personal, it's business. Mother's medical debt would have destroyed both our futures. This way, at least one of us survives financially intact. And you're willing to murder a 12-year-old girl for money?" Sarah's voice cracked with disgust and heartbreak. "Emma Harrison was never supposed to live past her 18th birthday anyway," Victoria replied matter-of-factly. Robert has been planning this for years. I simply provided a more immediate solution. The girl has seen too much, knows too much. She's become a liability that can't. The casual way her sister discussed murder made Sarah feel physically sick. This was the woman who'd taught her to ride a bike, who'd protected her from bullies in elementary school, who'd once cried when their pet cat died. What had transformed her into this cold, calculating monster? Tony checked his watch. 14 minutes. We need to find that kid and wrap this up. Shh, but before anyone could move, a new sound echoed through the building. Not from the ventilation system above, but from somewhere else entirely. It sounded like music? A faint melody that seemed to be coming from the diner's old jukebox in the main dining area. What the hell? The shorter man looked around in confusion. Who turned that on? Sarah's heart began to race, but not with fear, with hope. She recognized the song. It was Sweet Caroline by Neil Diamond, a song that held special meaning. It was the song her father used to play when she was Emma's age, the song that always made her feel safe during thunderstorms. Emma, Sarah whispered. She's trying to tell me she's okay. Tony's eyes narrowed. The kid's not in the vents anymore. She's back in the main building. He spoke into his radio. All units, the target has moved to the front of the building. Converge on the dining area, but remember, we need this to look like an accident. As they moved toward the dining room, Sarah realized Emma wasn't just hiding. She was setting a trap of her own. The main dining area was dark, except for the soft glow from the jukebox and the flashing police lights outside. The music continued to play, but there was no sign of Emma anywhere among the tables and booths. She's here somewhere, Tony muttered, scanning the shadows with his gun drawn. Kids don't just vanish into thin air. Maybe she did get outside, his partner suggested. Maybe the cops already have her. But Sarah knew better. Emma was smart, resourceful, and she'd been listening to everything through the vents. She knew the police couldn't be trusted, knew that even her rescue could be part of the trap. Whatever she was planning, Sarah had to be ready to help. The jukebox suddenly went silent, plunging the diner into an eerie quiet broken only by the sound of rain against the windows. Then a small voice came from somewhere in the darkness. Uncle Robert? Emma's voice sounded young and frightened, exactly like a lost child should sound. Uncle Robert, is that you? I'm scared. Tony and his partner exchanged glances, lowering their weapons slightly. The voice seemed to be coming from near the front counter, but Sarah could see that area was empty. Uncle Robert, they told me you were here to help me, Emma continued, her voice carrying perfectly through the diner's acoustics. They said you'd keep me safe from the bad men. Sarah suddenly understood Emma's plan. She was using the diner's old intercom system, the one connected to the kitchen that Bobby used to call out orders. Tony moved cautiously toward the front counter, his gun still ready but his posture less aggressive. Robert Harrison isn't here, kid, but we're here to help you. Come out, and we'll take you somewhere safe. I don't want to come out, Emma's voice replied through the hidden speakers. The men who took me said they were going to help me too, but they lied. How do I know you're not lying? Because we're the good guys, the shorter man called out, playing along with what he thought was a scared child's confusion. Prove it, Emma said, and there was something in her tone that made Sarah's pulse quicken. Prove you're the good guys by telling me who really hired you. Tony's face darkened. Kid, you're trying my patience. Get out here now, or what? Emma's voice had changed, becoming stronger, more confident. You'll shoot me like you shot the security guard at my school? You'll hurt me like you hurt Mrs. Patterson when she tried to stop you? Sarah saw Tony and his partner exchange worried looks. Emma was revealing details about the kidnapping that only she could know, details that proved these men were her original captors. The little brat's recording us, Tony realized with horror. She's been recording everything we've said. Emma's laughter echoed through the intercom system, but it wasn't the innocent giggle of a child. It was the triumphant sound of someone who just won a very dangerous game. That's right, Emma's voice rang out clearly. And guess what? The recording is already uploading to my daddy's private server. Everything you've said, everything my uncle planned, everything about Sarah's sister. It's all being saved where Uncle Robert can't delete it. Tony spun around wildly, looking for the source of Emma's voice, his professional composure finally cracking. Where are you? How did you access a server from here? The diner has Wi-Fi, Emma replied cheerfully. And I have a phone hidden in my school uniform that you never found. Daddy taught me how to use emergency protocols when I was 8 years old. Did you really think a 12-year-old wouldn't know how to use technology? The shorter man was frantically speaking into his radio. "Control, we have a problem. The target has been recording our conversation and transmitting data. We need immediate extraction." Victoria's voice came back over the radio, no longer calm and controlled. "Extraction denied. Clean up the situation immediately. Use any means necessary." Tony raised his gun toward the intercom speaker, but Sarah knew this was her moment. While the men were distracted by Emma's revelations, she grabbed a heavy coffee pot from the counter behind her and swung it as hard as she could at Tony's gun hand. The weapon went flying across the room as Tony screamed in pain and rage. His partner spun toward Sarah, but Emma's voice rang out one more time through the intercom system. "Daddy's security team is already on their way. They'll be here in 3 minutes. And Detective Chen? He's not working for Uncle Robert. He's working for my father. The whole police operation was a setup to catch you." The revelation that Marcus was working for James Harrison, not against him, sent shockwaves through the room. Tony's face went white as he realized the trap they'd walked into, while his partner was already backing toward the kitchen, looking for an escape route that no longer existed. "You're lying!" Tony snarled at the intercom speaker, cradling his injured hand against his chest. "There's no way a 12-year-old could have orchestrated all this." Emma's voice came back, tinged with satisfaction. "You're right. I didn't orchestrate it. My daddy did. He's been investigating Uncle Robert for months, ever since he noticed money disappearing from family accounts. When I was kidnapped, Daddy knew exactly who was behind it." The sound of vehicles approaching cut through the storm. Not just police cars, but heavy SUVs with engines that purred with expensive power. Through the rain-streaked windows, Sarah could see figures in tactical gear moving with military precision, surrounding the building with far more competence than the earlier police cordon had shown. "Sarah," Emma's voice called out through the intercom, softer now. "You saved my life tonight. Daddy wants to make sure you're safe too." Sarah felt tears streaming down her face, relief, exhaustion, and heartbreak all mixing together. She'd survived. Emma was safe. But the betrayal by her own sister would leave scars that might never fully heal. The shorter man made a desperate dash for the back exit, but the sound of breaking glass from the kitchen told them he'd run straight into the arms of James Harrison's security team. Tony looked around wildly, realizing he was trapped with nowhere to run. "This is over," Sarah told him, but Tony's expression showed he wasn't ready to surrender. "Maybe for you," Tony growled, lunging toward the intercom system. "But if I'm going down, I'm taking that little girl with me." Sarah threw herself between Tony and the speaker, and they crashed to the floor in a tangle of limbs. Tony was stronger, but desperation gave Sarah strength she didn't know she possessed. She fought like a mother protecting her child, clawing and kicking with everything she had. The front door of the diner exploded inward, and Marcus burst through with his gun drawn, followed by 3 men in tactical gear. Behind them came a figure Sarah recognized from countless news reports, James Harrison himself, his expensive suit soaked from the rain, but his eyes blazing with protective fury. "Where is she?" Harrison demanded, his voice carrying the authority of a man accustomed to getting answers immediately. Emma's real voice, not coming through the intercom this time, answered from behind the counter. "I'm here, Daddy. I'm okay." The billionaire's composure cracked as his 12-year-old daughter emerged from her hiding place, and Sarah saw him transform from a powerful CEO into simply a father who'd almost lost everything that mattered to him. He dropped to his knees as Emma ran into his arms, both of them crying with relief. Marcus helped Sarah to her feet while his team secured Tony, who was no longer resisting. The fight had gone out of him completely when he realized the scope of the operation that had been turned against him. "Are you hurt?" Marcus asked Sarah, his professional demeanor softening with genuine concern. "I'm okay," Sarah managed, though her hands were still shaking. "But Marcus, my sister, she was part of this. She helped them target me." Marcus nodded grimly. "We know. We've been monitoring her communications for weeks. She'll be arrested within the hour, along with Robert Harrison and several others involved in the conspiracy." Sarah felt a mix of relief and devastating sadness. Justice would be served, but it would come at the cost of losing her sister forever. James Harrison approached Sarah, still holding Emma's hand tightly. Up close, he looked older than his photos suggested, with worry lines around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and constant fear for his daughter's safety. "Miss Martinez," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I don't have words to thank you for what you did tonight. You risked your life to protect my daughter when you had no reason to help her." "I had every reason," Sarah replied, looking down at Emma's brave young face. "She's a remarkable kid. Any decent person would have done the same thing." "No," Harrison shook his head. "Most people would have been too afraid, too concerned about their own safety. You chose to put Emma's life before your own, and that's not something I'll ever forget. Emma tugged on her father's sleeve. Daddy, Sarah's mother is sick. She needs expensive treatment, and Sarah's been working extra shifts to pay for it. Can we help her? Harrison's eyes lit up with understanding. Of course we can help. Miss Martinez, I'd like to offer you a position with Harrison Industries, head of our new community outreach program. The salary will be more than enough to cover your mother's medical expenses, with benefits that will ensure she gets the best possible care. Sarah stared at him in shock. Mr. Harrison, that's incredibly generous, but I can't accept charity. It's not charity, Emma interrupted with a grin. It's a job offer. And Daddy needs someone honest working for him. Someone who can't be bought or threatened into betraying people. Someone like you. The offer represented not just financial security, but a complete transformation of Sarah's life. From struggling waitress to respected professional, all because she'd chosen to do the right thing. Over the next hour, the diner filled with investigators, forensics experts, and legal representatives. Sarah watched as the scene of her simple, predictable life was transformed into the center of a major criminal investigation. Tony and his partner were taken away in handcuffs, while Marcus coordinated with federal agents who would be handling the broader conspiracy. What will happen to Robert Harrison? Sarah asked James as they waited for the initial questioning to be completed. James's expression hardened. My brother will face charges for conspiracy, kidnapping, and attempted murder. The evidence Emma collected tonight, combined with what our investigators have already gathered, will put him away for the rest of his life. And my sister? Victoria Martinez will face similar charges. Her law license will be revoked, and she'll likely serve 20 to 30 years in federal prison. James paused, his voice gentler. I'm sorry, Sarah. I know this can't be easy for you. Sarah nodded, fighting back tears. I keep thinking about the sister I used to know before money and success changed her into someone I don't recognize. But I guess some people's true character only shows when they're tested. Emma, who had been quietly listening to the adult conversation, spoke up with wisdom beyond her years. Sarah, my daddy taught me that family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who stand by you when things get scary. And you stood by me tonight when you didn't even know me. The words hit Sarah with unexpected force. She'd lost one sister to greed and betrayal. But she'd gained something else entirely. A new family built on trust and mutual respect. 3 months later, Sarah stood in her new office on the 42nd floor of Harrison Tower, looking out at the Chicago skyline that had once seemed so distant and unreachable. Her mother's cancer treatment was going well, funded by the best medical insurance money could buy. The community outreach program was thriving, helping families in crisis situations. Families like her own had been. Emma visited the office regularly after school, always eager to hear about the latest families they were helping. The trauma of that stormy night had left its mark on both of them, but it had also forged a bond that Sarah knew would last a lifetime. The legal proceedings were still ongoing. Robert Harrison had pled guilty to avoid the death penalty, while Victoria remained defiant, claiming she'd been manipulated by others. Sarah had attended one court hearing and decided she couldn't bear to see her sister again. Some bridges, once burned, could never be rebuilt. Marcus had become a regular part of their lives too, his relationship with Sarah slowly rebuilding on a foundation stronger than their previous romance. He'd been promoted for his role in exposing the conspiracy, and he often joined Sarah and Emma for dinner at restaurants far fancier than Murphy's Diner. Sarah, Emma said one afternoon as they reviewed applications from families seeking assistance. Do you ever think about that night? About how everything changed? Sarah considered the question carefully. Every day. But you know what I think about most? I think about how you never gave up. Even when you were scared and alone, you kept fighting, kept looking for a way to save yourself and expose the truth. Emma smiled. I learned that from you. You could have turned me away that night, could have called the police and walked away from the whole mess. But you didn't. You chose to fight for someone you barely knew. And that choice changed both our lives forever, Sarah replied, realizing that sometimes the most important decisions we make happen in moments when we don't have time to think. We just have to trust our hearts to guide us toward what's right. As the sun set over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Sarah understood that the storm that had brought Emma into her life had also washed away everything that was holding her back. She'd lost a sister, but gained a daughter. She'd lost her simple life, but found her true purpose. And somewhere in the city below, other families were facing their own storms, their own moments of crisis. But now there was a program in place to help them, funded by a billionaire's gratitude and managed by a woman who understood what it meant to choose hope over fear, courage over safety. The little girl lost in the rain had found her way home, and in saving her, Sarah had found her way to a life she'd never dared to dream was possible.